Stugotz, I'd like some guidance from you as an editor, program director on how to produce the best show. I've got for you some juicy industry talk because things are elevated. McAfee and Simmons are going at it. Shannon Sharp and Mike Epps are going at it. And everyone's seen what McAfee has done, Stugotz. The business of it is fascinating, right? Shannon Sharp has just gotten into the game, bang, because he saw what McAfee did and he's willing to work his ass off. Shaq is now sprucing up his podcast because he's like, oh, wait a minute, I fell behind there for a second. And all these people with power can become the Kelseys. If you've got an entertaining brand and a lot of fame and a following, we're all our own brands now. And the industry stuff that's going on has it so that Nick Wright has zigged and zagged so much with the controversial takes of LeBron's the greatest, Mahomes is the greatest, that he's at the top of the game. He's the face of FS1. He's going to get all the money from there because Bayless is throwing out there today, 2 days late. He's throwing out there, what if Kelsey were black? Wrong game, Bayless. I was playing it 15 years ago. Keep up. We didn't even bother with that yesterday. A.J. Brown tried to drag us into it. Tyreek Hill tried to drag us into it. We didn't even do that. Do you want to talk industry? Or I've got some bonus football thoughts that I think all of you are going to find interesting.
Wow. This is a tough choice. But since you're asking, I would say bonus football thoughts first, and then we get to the industry.
All right. Let me ask you this question.
Because it's rare that you have bonus football thoughts.
Really. Okay. All right. So let's see if
you're always talking about the industry. You're never talking about football.
All right. Let's see if this is valuable to you. This question I'm going to pose to you. Can you ever have a historic, one of the best ever defenses if your quarterback is Mahomes? Because what the Chiefs just did, they ransacked the number 1 offense, the number 2 offense, the number 4 offense, and the number 6 offense. No one's ever done that. The Ravens of Ray Lewis did not do that. They wrecked Rich Gannon, they broke his arm, and then they beat a 14 or a 15 offensive team. A defense has never done what the Chiefs just did in this postseason, holding those 4 offenses to nothing in the second half. So I ask you, if their quarterback had been Dilfer, would we be talking about them as the best defense we've ever seen?
Well, those teams, Trent Dilfer, the Ravens, they get best defense, that's ever played. The Bears with Jim McMahon because they didn't have a great quarterback. So it's actually a great question. I'm trying to think of the team that had the great quarterback and the great defense.
Jim McMahon for the 85 Bears was not a great quarterback. He was. I don't know. I don't know if you can have a historically great defense if your quarterback's too good.
Kyle Shanahan, the way he decided to not to take the ball first, he made it so if he would have done it the way everyone said he should have done it, given the Chiefs the ball first, then the defense for the Chiefs could have ended the game. I feel like our narrative is more with Mahomes now because he was put in that spot where he needed to go down, get the touchdown. So we forget, to your point, Dan, that this is a defensive-led team. The defense was the best unit on that team, and we forget it because Mahomes...
I'm not saying defensive-led. What I'm saying is history will forget how great this defense is because we're making it right now and we're talking about Mahomes.
The story was Mahomes and Andy Reid.
It's because that overtime situation
and
put
Kelsey.
Mahomes in the spot where he had to do the thing.
And Kelsey, you want to show me something mutating fame into what Kelsey has mutated it to? Don't make it with a tight end. Make it with a defense. Good luck. Make the defense that famous.
The interesting part would be if you look at the 2007 Patriots, who went undefeated, they only gave up more than 20 points 5 times that season. But they had Tom Brady and Randy Moss, and so they're known for their offense. But some of those Patriots teams, led by Belichick as a coordinator, in some ways, were led by how dominant their defense was, especially at the beginning of the Brady era.
You have to have a Ray Lewis.
But it's not just that, because Ray Lewis went through, I'm reminding you what those games were. The Giants were a mediocre offense. Tennessee was a mediocre offense. Denver had a decent offense, and Oakland had the MVP, but Baltimore immediately injured the MVP of the league, Rich Gannon. And so what the Chiefs...
Denver had Peyton.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But a bad Peyton.
No, is that the same time period? Denver had a good offense that year. But the reason I'm bringing it up is only because what you just saw, because the point totals in that, it was 3-10, 3-7
right,
that those Ravens allowed. But the Chiefs just did less than that. They weren't quite that good, but against the 4 of the 6 best offenses in the sport. The other thing I wanted to ask you, did the Chiefs lose a game after their temper tantrum meltdown? They complained about the officiating. That Mahomes embarrassed himself. Was it the game against the Bills that seems like a long time ago, but they were getting crushed in the media for melting down in an embarrassing fashion because they were complaining about the officiating, and Kelsey had the flip back to Kadarius Toney, and they melted down, and they were an embarrassment. A champion never behaves that way during a regular season, correct?
Yes.
Did they lose after that?
They lost to the Raiders 2 weeks later.
Right.
How do you survive what that team was, losing at home 2 weeks later? And that game, I believe, what was the score of that game?
The Raiders 20-14.
All right, because the other stat on Mahomes I wanted to give you was he's played 96 games, okay? And only three of them, has he finished the game down more than one score. So basically every game he plays in, he's in. If you included the playoffs, it's 4 of 114. He never loses by more than one score, and it indicates to you that he's always in the end of a game, and he's going to win some of them and lose some of them, but they're never going to lose by more than one score.
He's going to win most of them. I mean,
I don't like what's happening here because you're putting us in a position where we can't give one person or one side of the ball all the credit for why it is that they're so great.
well, he's just saying this defense is going to get forgotten. It is because of Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, and Andy Reid. He's probably right.
Do you remember the Chiefs used to be 30 points a game? How many times, Jeremy, did the Chiefs used to be every time you knew bet over 28.5, bet over 29.5, bet over 30.5 because they're going to score 4 touchdowns and a field goal?
They only scored 30 points or more 3 times this entire season, and the last time they did it was a win against the Raiders in Week 12.
I'd be interested to have an honest conversation with Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie. Do you think that there is any resentment, or it's just Mahomes is our GOAT, so I don't care who gets the credit. We're the champions. It would be funny to talk to them in a real alone.
I tried to goad Von Miller and others to say, did Brock Osweiler give you some of his $50 million contract that he got simply because you won a couple of games being great at defense? And no one would bite on it. And Osweiler was the worst.
You could make the argument that Trent McDuffie was better than Patrick Mahomes this season. Dude, those corners for the Chiefs were elite.
You could probably make that argument.
Mm-hmm. And it's just so funny that nobody, everyone says Chris Jones, Mahomes. Chris Jones, I feel at least gets a little bit. Those corners have to be but I feel like they're not. We're just doing the thing right now. We're trying to split them apart. I bet you Trent McDuffie has not had that thought in his head.
I know where Billy is going here, and please say it's true. Billy, go ahead.
Well, you guys want the defense to then come out and say we carry Patrick Mahomes. He's overrated. Is what you guys are hoping. An honest defense that's you know what, we can do this without Patrick Mahomes. People are saying he's the greatest of all time. We're carrying his ass. Dead weight.
Listen.
Him and Kelsey, off season.
For most of the year, though, the Kansas City defense was getting full credit and most of the credit because Patrick Mahomes, by his standards, had an off year. He did not have a great season.
This defense will be forgotten outside of Kansas City. Yes or no? Forgotten. I'm
Yes.
talking history
Yes.
will forget this defense and that it was great because Mahomes won the playoffs. He went on the road and he won. He won at the end of games. Mahomes.
It is Mahomes' Super Bowl. In the end, Mahomes is justifiably getting all the credit. He won the last three games.
You're saying justifiably, and I'm stopping you with this is one of the great defenses ever. Again,
Yes.
no defense has ever done this in a playoff run, going to win the championship against 4 of the top 6 offenses in a modernized sport when the difference between the 6th offense and the 16th one is huge. We knew who the best offenses were in that sport, and we saw all these guys ground to dust in the face of this defense, including the MVP of the league.
That defense gave up 10 points to the MVP of the league at home, the Ravens, who beat the 49ers 35-19.
I feel like this is similar to Brady, no? Brady had some good defenses, and do we think back on any of those as defensive-led Super Bowls?
My point to you is, if I could take any time in history and show you a league MVP in his prime who got 49 of 50 first-place votes, that person never gets stopped in the playoffs, period. That person never gets stopped at home, period. That person, that kind of MVP, that kind of greatness, your defense has to match it with something that makes Lamar Jackson something to us that was unrecognizable. We did not recognize. That defense did it to him. What were we talking about? Mahomes after the game. He got him to 17 points.
And Taylor Swift.
Even though they didn't do anything in the second half.
It's funny, back in '86, the Giants, who had a great defense, went up against the Buffalo Bills, who had a great offense. The Giants won that game. The defense was not the story. It was, I'm telling you right now, it was Phil Simms and it was Bill Parcells.
Oh, but that's a historic defense that's remembered for all time.
Because they had the all-time
Bill
best.
Parcells is a defensive coach because
Right.
he won with that quarterback. He became golden forever. That's an all-time defense.
It is, but when I think back to the 86 Super Bowl, it's not one of the first three things I think of. It is Simms, it's Parcells, it's Whitney Houston.
Can I just, because we've been doing a lot of talking about the GOATs.
She may have been later, though.
Greatest coach and all this, Belichick, Andy Reid, great defenses, all this stuff. Can we just, give a shout out to Chuck Noll, who has 4 Super Bowls and has more than Andy Reid, and no one is talking about as being a great coach and a defensive coach?
A lot of people were defending Terry Bradshaw. As everyone rushed to talk about how Brady and Mahomes are the best.
There it is, the steel curtain. That's the guy. They had a great quarterback. Well, he wasn't so great.
he
Had an
wasn't
average
great.
quarterback, but we remember the defense.
But you also remember the quarterback. Terry Bradshaw
I
won
do.
5 championships
Listen,
and wasn't that good.
4.
We always talk about Joe Namath being the most overrated quarterback in the Hall of Fame. If you look at Terry Bradshaw's career statistics,
No,
not
don't
the
do
rings,
this. Don't do
the
this.
career statistics,
They're terrible.
not real good.
Don't do this.
Not really good.
I'm going to do it.
Well, the Steelers won all the championships then because there was no free agency and they kept all their players.
That's right.
The game changed after that. It's a ridiculous glitch in the system. They didn't lose any of their players who had no real freedom.
I feel like we are going to look back 20 years from now and be like, there was that one Chiefs team that was carried by the defense.
That's my wonder is if Mahomes
way.
if Mahomes carries it with these offensive juggernauts for the next several Super Bowls that he wins, and it's because there's 30 points per game being scored and it's all about the offense. I do wonder if we remember the one season where it was carried by the defense.
I'm never
going
to forget the way Andy Reid jumped on Chris Jones. Like
That's
that
true.
is gonna just that
You will
be
forget
the
that in
thing
a
that I'll
month.
be like, remember he jumped on Chris Jones and then awkwardly
Play
tried
it again.
to get up.
It's great. I love it every time. He gets pushed over. There it is.
Oh, we're celebrating.
So many jostles.
Oh, all right, I'm gonna get up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that last hand right there. Careful.
Jesus.
Careful.
Come on, respect the defense. Let's like that together. Respect the defense.
Respect the defense.
Ah.